Hi everyone, this is Rion Paper, and today I wanted to talk to you about my garden journal. If you have seen my video from November, I think December maybe last year, where I talk about my 2024 journal and planner lineup, you may remember this little book. This is a Hobonichi Hon A6. And in that video, I talked about how I was going to set this up as a garden journal. But I haven't shown it since, and that's because I've only recently started filling this out, which is perfectly fine. It's a dated planner, at least that's what it was designed for. However, I'm not using it as a dated planner. We'll talk about that more in detail. I just wanted to mention that this isn't blood on my finger. It's actually red fountain pen ink. Because apparently I always think that playing with ink is a good idea just before recording a video. Why do I have a garden journal? My partner and I, we bought a house 2 years ago now, I think. And it's a newly built house and it has a pretty big garden space that was nothing but mud, grass, and weeds. And bit by bit, we are working our way through the garden and making it basically the garden of our dreams, as far as, budget and time and our skills allow it, because we're doing everything, more or less everything ourselves. Which has been I've learned so many things in just this short amount of time, and it's been a really fulfilling thing to do. And I thought that a garden journal could help me know how to take care of the plants that we're planting, design sort of the little flower beds, and instructions on how to prune a tree or a shrub, things like that. And that is what is in here. So let's just dive into it and see what I'm currently doing. There's not much in here yet, but still I figured that it might be interesting to just, talk about my thought process and show some examples along the way. So this is sort of the year at a glance page, and I'm using this as an index for this book. So all of these little lines, all of these dates correspond to a page in the back of the book. And that is basically what I'm doing here. So for example, this is our, I think it's called a privet in English, that we planted as sort of a divider between our front yard and our neighbor's front yard. So basically, what's going to happen is the month of January, I'm dedicating these pages to our front yard, and the other ones are specific sections of our backyard. I don't need 31 entries for a front yard. A front yard isn't that big, but I just figured that it would be nice to sort of group the plants from a certain area of our garden together. And that is what I've done. And then I'm leaving the first one blank for the specific care, the plant care or garden, chores or tasks that we have to do in that specific month, so that it's just easy to remember where I put those. So on the 1st of January, I'm going to use that page for plant care in January. I haven't set up that page yet. I also reckon that it won't be a very long instruction for January, because there's not that much that we have to do in January, but I've set up one for February. So let's take a look at what that entails. Oh, not anything yet. Which one have I done? I've written something down for April. So at the beginning of April, there's this one plant in our front yard that we have to prune. So basically what I'm doing is I'm writing down the specific instructions for every plant, and then whenever a specific month comes up, I'm going to add that to that page so that I can either look at the specific plant and see, okay, this plant is not doing well. What is there anything I can do? Is there maybe something that we've done wrong? Or this plant needs to be pruned. How exactly should I approach that? Or I can just look at the month and see, okay, it is now the beginning of April. What are all the things that I have to schedule this month and just have to make time for to do those things? So that is what I'm using these pages for, and they will gradually become fuller and contain all the plants that we either have in the garden or want to plant in the garden, because we are nowhere near done. We are just starting to plant our maybe third sort of flower bed. My garden vocabulary in English is very, very limited. It's one of those things that you don't really learn when you're learning a foreign language. You don't really study, garden terms. So maybe I should. There's nothing in the monthlies yet. And what I'm going to use the monthlies for is writing down I'm going to use this once we start planting our vegetable garden. We have dedicated one space in the garden for the growing of vegetables, herbs, edible flowers. And for that, we have to, there's harvesting times, there's when do you plant the seedlings? Do you plant them inside the house and then move them outside, or do you plant them directly into the soil? Things like that is what I want to note here, so that we have an overview of, in January or February, maybe there are some plants that you can already plant the seedlings for, or not plant, like grow seedlings for, and then you can plant them in like March or April. And some plants you only start in May because they, are either have a very short cycle, or you harvest them later in the year. So that's what I want to make here. Make basically sort of a calendar of all of the vegetable seeds that we have and that we want to get, and when do we plant them and stuff like that. And then we get to sort of what's it called? The meat and the potatoes of the planner. And that's basically just a single page per type of plant. So unfortunately, the very first word that I wrote in this planner, I did with a pen that just bled through for a bit. So I changed that later. So this is basically what it says is it's a privet. It has the specific species name in Latin underneath it. I've added a little image. It's not a very good image. I've just printed it with a basic printer, and it's just a picture that I found online. But just to quickly see, it's that specific plant with that type of leaves or that type of flower. Just to make it a little more interesting to look at. So the first block of information is information about the type of soil the plant needs, the amount of sunlight. Does it need direct sunlight? Does it grow well in the shade? Something in between. The type of soil is especially important for us because we have a very clay-like soil that retains a lot of water. And I'll also add whether or not it flowers, when it flowers, whether it's edible or toxic, for our cats as well, because they sometimes go out into the garden. And then the second block of information is the care instructions. So for example, does it need to be pruned? And if so, when does it need to be pruned? And how do I go about it? Do I just, clip away some flowers, some old flowers, or do I have to shape it? All those kind of instructions go in the second block of information. And if I want to know about a specific plant in our garden, all of the sort of research that I've collected online is summarized on this specific page. So we've done the same for the cherry blossom that we have, which is currently in bloom, and it is just chock full of blossom, even though we've planted it only last summer. So this is the first time that it's blooming in our front yard, and it looks absolutely beautiful. It's a super early, the Autumnalis rosea type is a very early flowering, blossoming cherry. So that's cool. Some more plants that we have in the front yard, and that's basically all I've added now. There's another one that we planted last year, but I think that one may have died, so I'm not sure if I want to add it or if I just wait until whether it recovers or not. And then we are currently planting another plant bed, flower bed, and for that I have made a little drawing. It's not very detailed or very pretty, but it is very useful in knowing where exactly we have to plant the plants and what we're gonna plant where. So basically it's just this is our little garden shed. The entrance is somewhere like outside of the picture. And this is the edge of our garden. And this is basically like the far back corner of the garden. And in it, I've just noted the plants that we're gonna plant. And all of the information about these types of plants will follow on the following pages. For example, I've added the first one, which is our climbing hydrangea. I've just added the picture, what it needs when it flowers, and also how we need to prune it. And that is basically how I'm going to use this, how I am using this garden journal. And now that I've taken the first steps, filled the first pages, and I'm sort of over that blank notebook fear, it's going to be much easier to just keep adding more pages. And I wanted to start this over the Christmas holidays, but I was so not in the mood for anything gardening related because it was just grey and wet and cold. And obviously, to fill a journal, you don't have to go outside and you don't have to, actually do things in the garden. But I was just not motivated to work on this. Whereas now it is super sunny. It is starting to feel like spring. And we've spent our first weekend working in the garden, creating the first, flower bed of the year. And we had to do a lot of work with the soil because it was very uneven, very clay-like. We had to get some good gardening soil and mix that together, and it was so fun to just be outside again and be working on something that is, our passion project, something that both my partner and I are really looking forward to, making this a beautiful space for us to sit in and enjoy, but also just for biodiversity, for the birds, the insects, like bees, butterflies. Like already we've planted one little section last summer, and that made such a difference in terms of the amount of bees and butterflies and bumblebees that we saw in our garden. And now that it's springtime, there are a lot of birds, that come into the garden looking for food, which they find, but we don't have much shelter yet, as our shrubs are still, and the trees, we've planted 2 trees in the backyard last year, and because they're still so small, they don't provide much shelter for the birds. So we're really hoping that once the garden grows more and gets fuller, that not only it will be more fun to look at and it will just make us happy, but it will also be good for the biodiversity and the well-being of the animals in our garden. And then we just have to protect all of the animals from our cats, but they're terrible hunters anyway, so I guess they'll be fine. So yeah, if you have any ideas on things that I could add to the garden journal, please let me know. I hope this was of some use to you. Maybe you got some inspiration for it if you have been thinking about starting a garden journal yourself, or maybe you're already doing that and maybe you've picked up an idea or two. I'll definitely show you more of this journal once the pages are becoming more and more full, and once I've added more of my little dip-in drawings. And maybe also some pictures. I've been thinking that I should start taking pictures of the garden, like maybe every month, so that I can see how it changes. I probably should stop rambling now. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye!